Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. Again, I'm Dave Percy, with a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Up first on the warnings graphic, we've got high wind warning still out until midnight tonight for St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, and that's for winds to continue to gust to 60 miles an hour or more, again until midnight tonight. So that's throughout this evening, and then there's also a high surf advisory here along the northwest coast, and wind advisory as well there. Winds gust 40-50 miles an hour, and then there's a wind advisory continues also for the Kobuk Valley there in the greater Ambler area, and that's out until I believe 4 a.m. Monday morning for winds gusting 40-45 miles an hour, especially higher elevations there. And that's about it, except for there's a wind advisory also on the north side of the Seward Peninsula there, Shishmaref area, and that's for the 40-50 mile an hour wind gusts. Again, through that's probably until midnight tonight, as well as about the same timing as the warning area. And moving on to satellite imaging, you can see this pretty wound up system rolling northward and then pulling back to the northwest toward the Russian coast. And the back edge of the front right near St. Lawrence Island at 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon, last picture time, with some clearing right just to the south, probably in over the area now at the time of this broadcast. Otherwise, warmer air to the south with the southeast wind. So we had a warming trend, snow changing to rain pattern going on here across all the southwest interior. Pretty strong wind associated with the front as well, with Cape Newnham seeing gusts over 60 miles an hour today, and they picked up also about 0.8 of an inch of precipitation with the front in the last 12 hours, and rain of about 1/3 of an inch in some areas, maybe even 1/2 an inch here, Alaska Peninsula, and up across the southwest. Of course, some of that falling in the form of snow, but the front now pushing up in toward the Seward Peninsula and the Bering Strait areas for increasing winds there, and snow and rain. Otherwise, here we've got pretty good trough swinging eastward, that bringing gusty winds into the Aleutians. Strongest winds actually north of the Aleutians, but rain showers mixing with snow, lower snowfall levels. So we got mixed rain and snow showers all the way back to Shimmy with temperatures in the mid to upper 30s. And you can see high clouds moving all the way into at least the central Cook Inlet here across the Kuskokwim Valley. Otherwise, sunshine, again, Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula areas northward, all the way up to about the Brooks Range there. Actually pretty good all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast, showing up lighter due to the colder temperatures. And then we had this area of moisture, very weak disturbance coming down in northerly flow aloft, and produced a few clouds here over the eastern interior, and isolated snow showers possible over the mountains, nothing very significant at all. A little bit more significant here near and north of the Panhandle, actually some rain showers making it down into Juneau, Haines, around those areas there. Very light though, and dry with sunshine all the way down to the south. And putting that in motion again, you can see this cloud mass here, mostly sliding southeastward, but again, bulk of the moisture will stay in Canada with just a slight threat of some shower activity over the northern part of the Panhandle over toward the border. And again, whatever falls will be quite light. And out to the west, you can just see the, at the end of the loop here, you can see the Cirrus shield with the next system that'll be rolling into the Bering Sea later tonight and tomorrow. On the chart today, the first system, again, pulling back to the northwest after making a northerly track here across the Bering Sea, front pushing out to the east, and the gradient weakening here across Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula. So lighter winds there with rain from the front all the way up, spreading into Kodiak Island, and areas of kind of broken up precipitation pattern here over the inland areas due to the mountainous terrain. But mixed rain and snow, warmer temperatures all the way up to the Bering Strait, and rain and snow showers scattered in a couple of bands went right through here, and then more back out here to the west with rain showers, as I mentioned, from the eastern Aleutians, and that almost becoming mostly snow, wet snow out toward Chimia, but amounts are lightening up out in that area. Otherwise, we have this weak trough, this weak disturbance, better seen aloft there coming southward around the upper level ridge over the north slope areas, and that's again kicking off showers actually all the way into the eastern Gulf of Alaska, but pretty scattered in nature, especially over the Panhandle, very light, and also clouds that go along with it, mostly sunny skies down to the south there, and very nice and dry here over southern Alaska today with good sunshine, light winds. For tonight, same pattern here, mostly clear, eastern Arctic coast, central coast, all the way down Copper River Basin into the eastern North Gulf Coast here. Then you pick up some more clouds over the Panhandle, but dry conditions, again, risk of a snow shower over toward the border. Some of this moisture might try to cross there, but if it does, it won't really amount to too much at all. Rain, Kodiak Island tonight, new development here, not very strong, about 1,007 millibars, so it looks pretty wet for Kodiak tonight with continuous light rain, maybe some fog, rain and snow here for the entire west coast along that front. Winds diminishing now. As I mentioned, the high wind warning ends at midnight tonight for St. Lawrence Island areas. Wind advisories, though, for the Kobuk Valley out until, I believe, it's 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. So once the front gets up to the northeast of the area and the low center pulls back and weakens into Russia, these winds will lighten up considerably. At the same time, next system bringing gale force winds and rain back into the far western Aleutians here. Otherwise, you got this trough coming eastward, stronger portion up to the north there, but strong enough to keep it breezy with rain and snow showers from Adak and Atka on into the eastern Aleutians. Kind of a break there for the Alaska Peninsula behind that first low. And then looking at tomorrow's forecast for Monday, still this lingering threat of snow showers, mostly along the border and in Canada, but you can see there's a lot less in Canada than there was. And then maybe a rain or snow shower over the mountainous terrain somewhere around Yakutat, but dry for the North Gulf Coast. More clouds, though, in the picture. Cook Inlet, variably cloudy. Best chance of actually some light precipitation might slide on up into southern Cook Inlet, Kachemak Bay, southern Kenai Peninsula, and then mixed precipitation, light amounts, areas of here across the southwest interior, right along that trough axis, which is the remnants of that front. That continues to weaken considerably. We've got, again, aloft high pressure here over the interior areas, right up the central interior with the upper high there up over the Arctic Ocean, just off the coast. Big storm here, next system, gale force winds, possible storm force winds with us as well. For the Aleutians, gradually pushing eastward, not quite reaching the Fox Islands. Pribilof still in that break, but an increase in the winds in both areas tomorrow afternoon. A lot drier with high pressure building into the Bristol Bay area. Look for some partly sunny skies at times tomorrow with light winds. And again, dry right up the southwest coast of St. Lawrence Island area with the showers staying back to the west. Arctic coast, east-northeasterly breezes, not too strong, but hopefully should stay VFR there all the way down to the North Gulf Coast. And then for Tuesday, we've got still the remnants of the first front here. Mainly affecting the Barren Islands, southern Cook Inlet, and the Kenai Peninsula areas. That'll keep the possible marginal VFR for Lake Clark and Merrill Passes with some precipitation on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. Just scattered amounts of light precipitation left over here all the way up to the Seward Peninsula. And then that next system pushing eastward here brings the wind and rain back into the southwest coast, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula. This low center staying farther to the south, moving just about right over the Pribilof Islands. So strong, definitely gale force westerlies in store for the central and eastern Aleutians with numerous showers on the day Tuesday, gradually becoming better, but the winds not ending completely, nor the showers out to the west. Look for a few clouds on the Arctic coast there. Breezy easterly winds could gust up to 25 miles an hour possibly there. Looks like enough gradient, kind of breezy here over the northwest interior as well. This trough will bring a chance of rain to the southern panhandle again Tuesday afternoon, but it'll be dry with variable clouds, partly sunny skies up to the north. Low temperatures for tonight, forecast dropping a little below zero, call it 0 to 5 below there from Arctic Village up to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and either side of zero all the way down into Northway and Tok. Lower to mid-teens, the greater Fairbanks area out to the west, and then markedly warm, as you can see here, as you get out toward Norton Sound, right around freezing. Upper 20s, Seward Peninsula, and either side of 20 there for the Chukchi Sea and the northwest coast. Staying above freezing for the Pribilofs, mid-30s for the Aleutians, upper 30s. Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, right up to near 40 around Kodiak, and lows in the upper 20s to lower 30s, south central Alaska, in the 30s there for the southeast coast. Highs for tomorrow for the Panhandle in the 50s in that area, and Susitna Valley definitely rising in the 50s tomorrow, lower to mid there, maybe 56 or 7 possibly in some areas, but for the most part the western areas west of the mountains there, west of the Alaska Range, Kuskokwim Valley, mid-40s, cooling back to near 40 out along the coast, and upper 30s for Nunivak Island, lower 30s St. Lawrence Island, highs in the mid to upper teens for the Arctic coast, and in the 40s, lower to mid there for the Aleutians. And for Tuesday morning, lows again right around 0, some above, some a little below, but near 0 here for the Arctic coast, North Slope, on down into Arctic Village, 5 to 10 above for the lows, eastern interior, lower 30s here to the west, Panhandle, not much change, mid-30s there, and upper 30s out over the Aleutians, with upper 30s also for Kodiak, upper 20s, southern Alaska. And for the highs, back into the 50s, especially the Susitna Valley areas on down, possibly northern Kenai Peninsula, still lower to mid-teens up along the Arctic coast, and mid-40s here over the southwest.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Looking at flying weather, lots of IFR here from the Chukchi Sea right on down the west coast to in and around Kodiak Island, back up across Barents into Kachemak Bay, and then up into the Gulf of Alaska, barely reaching the North Gulf Coast with lots of VFR remaining, but beginning to get encroached, or this area of marginal VFR gradually pushing eastward here up to the Alaska Range. Also IFR up the east side of the western Alaska Range. And for the afternoon, not too bad yet over the southeast coast there. We still got some IFR on the south coast there, just off the south coast. Otherwise pretty good VFR westward to Prince William Sound, and then lower conditions there along the coast of the Kenai Peninsula, IFR the Barents, east side of Kodiak Island, and IFR breaking up out here over the southwest, but holding together over the northern Bering Sea. And with that next pretty good storm coming into the central Bering Sea with the front pushing eastward. And then for Tuesday morning, IFR, North Slope, central eastern Arctic coast, from the Seward Peninsula, northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, right on down the Yukon, or covering much of the Yukon Delta, and then along the coast here, and then increasing there. Looks like it'll work into possibly southern Kuskokwim Valley. Still looking at the lower conditions, upslope flow there on the eastern slopes of the western range, and mostly VFR over the eastern interior from the North Gulf Coast to the Brooks Range. Afternoon, even better, less restrictions or ceilings visibility here over the interior, which means VFR, and also IFR for the Barren Islands, Kachemak Bay, northeast Kodiak Island, south side of the Alaska Peninsula, and IFR now mostly shifting up into the central and northern Bering Sea with marginal VFR for the Aleutians. Looking at the passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR throughout the day tomorrow. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR with IFR on both approaches there. On both eastern approaches, IFR, that'll be the lowest conditions. Rainy VFR and gradually becoming marginal VFR. Moisture having trouble pushing up to or past the Rainy Pass latitude. And for windy, good VFR tomorrow. Isabel VFR, and good also wide open for Tanita. Portage VFR and Chilcoot and White, both will be VFR. For the freezing levels, we've got 2,000 to 4,000 feet here. Kodiak Island up along the western Alaska Range, or just south of Kodiak Island for 4,000. Surface again hugging the North Gulf Coast, east side of the Panhandle toward the border, and a little bit farther north out here over the Bering Sea. And for the icing, we've got with the first front weakening, slowly pushing inland here, isolated moderate with more of a isolated moderate, more widespread light rime icing here with this feature, a break, and then with the next storm, more icing coming in with that one. of mostly the light to isolated moderate rime variety there above about 5,000 feet. Jet stream showing tomorrow, midday, we've got ridging right through the central part of the state with the main upper high center just off the Arctic coast up there. Wind flow northerly, not all that strong, about 30 to 60 knots here, but taking more of a northeasterly turn over southern Alaska, keeping it dry and mostly clear. Otherwise, next system, that's with the next storm pushing into the Bering Sea there, associated with 150 knot jet max. So moving on to 9,000 feet, not too bad over the interior, 10 to 20 or 15 to 20 knots east, becoming more southeasterly. A little bit of a band here, but only about 20 knots, narrow band here across the southwest and back down to 15 Bristol Bay. Of course, light under the ridge, only 15 knots with this low center, very light winds for the panhandle, even the Gulf of Alaska, 5 to 10 knots, and that's it. But different story out here with that next storm into the southwest Bering there. We've got 50 to 65 knot winds coming in with that system, and the stronger 80 knot winds still off to the south, at least through tomorrow, and southerlies diminished down to actually 20 to 35 through here, kind of a wind max shooting up to and just southwest of St. Lawrence Island. 3,000 feet, about the same pattern, but not as strong as the winds here, but still up to anywhere 50 to 60 knots with that storm out west. Lighter here over the interior. Some areas could keep up 25 knots through this zone, and 20 knots western Arctic coast. Light winds panhandle into the valley, and moderate chop up here in the northwest, also west of Nikolsky, all the way out to Shimei and Attu. That'll be the bumpiest areas, possible isolated severe smaller aircraft. Otherwise, southwest coast, St. Lawrence Island could be a little bumpy as well. And after the marine forecast, I will be back with a marine forecast after the break.
And now your 2018 Alaska River Watch update.
Hi, my name is Selena Van Breukelen. I'm a hydrologist at the National Weather Service. I'm on the Alaska Weather Show today talking about our breakup forecast for 2018. Breakup is the process of when we move from the snow-covered and ice-filled winter river conditions to when that snow and that ice melts and we move into a summer ice-free condition. It represents a time where many rivers are vulnerable towards flooding, and this is our 2018 forecast. So the first thing we're going to look at when we examine flooding potential is the snowpack. This is a snowpack map of Alaska. It was taken on April 1st. What we can see here is any of the locations which are in the blue or the dark blue are going to be above normal snowpack. So we have quite a bit of snow in the northwestern side of the state. We have the Kobuk, the Koyukuk, the Seward Peninsula, down through the middle of Yukon, into the Tanana and the eastern Alaska Range, and also the Copper River Basin. That northwest through southeast section of the state has well above average snowpack. Also along the Canadian border, we have normal snowpack. That's going to be the 40-mile country, close to Eagle, also the eastern side of the Wrangels. We have below normal snowpack on the Kenai Peninsula, as well as the western Susitna, down through southeast Alaska. The next thing we look at when we evaluate breakup flooding potential is the amount of ice that's in the channel, or the April ice thicknesses. What we can see here is we have normal to below normal ice thickness. That's because we've had relatively mild temperatures throughout the winter, as well as a little bit of snowpack in order to insulate the ice cover. So looking, we've got 80% of normal in the YK Delta, up through 80% of normal on the North Slope, 50% of normal through the Brooks Range, 80 to 100% of normal in the Fairbanks area, 100% of normal in Eagle, as well as 100% of normal in the south central Alaska, the Anchorage Kenai area, and 110% of normal in the Wrangels. So normal to below normal ice thickness throughout the state. Looking into the forecast, what we're predicting as far as temperatures for warm-up, trying to kick off the breakup process. For the middle of April, we have a greater than normal chance of warmer temperatures, especially in the western side of the state. Most decidedly, the YK Delta has the greatest chance of above normal temperatures, and there is some indication of above normal chances of warmer temperatures as far north as Barrow. There's some tilt towards colder temperatures for points north and east of Fairbanks, so for the Porcupine area, for the eastern Brooks Range. We're not predicting any significant precipitation for the middle of April. That doesn't mean there's not going to be any snow or rain, but it's probably not enough to be appreciable to make any changes to the snowpack. Then looking a little bit further down through the last part of April into early May, there's quite a tilt for warmer than average temperatures across the state. And then once again, still staying consistent with that below normal chances of precipitation. For our flood outlook potential, we're expecting a higher chance of snowmelt flooding for the locations which have the high snowpack. So that was the northwestern side of the state down through the southeast. So that's going to be your AKwx, Seward Peninsula, Middle Yukon, Eastern Alaska Range, Copper River basins. One thing of note is the Chena Basin has above normal snowpack. It's near record levels, so that increases the potential that the Moose Creek Flood Control Project would operate. That doesn't mean that Fairbanks will be flooded. It means that the operation of the dam sometimes causes groundwater issues in the North Pole area. And putting this all together, we have normal to well above normal snowpack across most of the state, with the exception of south central and southeast. We have normal to below normal ice thickness, just because the winter hasn't been bitterly cold and there's been some snow to insulate the ice. We have some bias towards warmer temperatures in late April and early May. And the outlook is the likelihood of flooding due to ice jams is average, and the amount of snowpack increases the likelihood of snowmelt flooding, especially in the Middle Yukon, the Tanana, and the Koyukuk. So it is still early. These are just the initial predictions. As breakup progresses, we'll be posting updates on the Alaska Weather Show as well as our website. That will be as soon as we have the information. So to look at our breakup map, you can see that on the web at www.weather.gov/APRFC. So this is Selena Van Breukelen. I'm with the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, and this is your breakup forecast. Thank you.
Riverwatch is a safety and preparedness program organized by the National Weather Service's Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center and the State of Alaska's Emergency Operations Center. For the latest updates on Riverwatch, head to weather.gov/APRFC. And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sunday sea ice analysis continuing to show melting and retreating back to the north, and as you can see in toward the coastline here, and the forecast is that's going to continue for the next 4 or 5 days, and also some shore-fast ice here from Wales to Shishmaref showing some fracturing and may begin to pull away from the shore-fast ice. On to the coastal water forecast. South coast, northwest 15 to 20 for the day Monday. East turning southeast, the farther north on the coast there, only 15 knots, seas 4 feet. Gusty north winds, northern Lynn Canal 30 knots, down to 15 for Stevens Passage, northwest at 10 for the Clarence Strait area. And then for Tuesday, that swings around to the southeast and comes up a little bit, about 15 knots for Clarence Strait, Stevens Passage. North winds die down to 15 knots for northern Lynn Canal. South winds at about 20 with 6-foot seas on the south coast. Southeast 15 to 20 on the north coast. Prince William Sound, light northeasterlies tomorrow, slight seas. Easterlies 15 to 20 here for the North Gulf Coast. 30-knot winds, small craft advisories for the Barrens. Gales there for Kachemak Bay, east 35 knots, and southern Cook Inlet north at 20. Outlook for Tuesday, northern Cook Inlet northeast at 15. Northeast 20 here south of the Forelands. Winds coming out a little bit. Small craft advisories, Kachemak Bay. Seas 11 feet. Southeast 30 for the Barren Islands with 7-foot seas. Easterlies at 25 here, excuse me, for the western North Gulf Coast. Falling back to 20 knots around Middleton Island. And winds stay fairly light there for Prince William Sound. Shelikof Strait, northeast 25, but only 15 knots from the southeast on the east side of the island. Northwest 20 from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, and then westerlies at 20 on down to Cape Sarachev. Southwest 20 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, turning west at 15 for Bristol Bay. Big increase in the winds in store for Tuesday here with 40 knots southeast winds, even for Bristol Bay, 7-foot seas. 40-knot winds all the way down, actually along all of the peninsula, more southerly here on the Pacific side, and minimum gales all the way up to Sitkinak. And these winds will start later on, start picking up a little more, but 20 knots in the forecast for Tuesday. And for the Aleutians, we got a lot of 40 and 45-knot winds, exception being the Fox Islands here. For tomorrow, there'll be southwest 30 knots, mostly on Alaska Island actually, 12 to 13-foot seas. Get back to the west a little and you're into the gales, and 40 to 45 knot southerlies here for the all the way over to Adak and Atka. and including, let's see, probably over to Kiska, and then it falls back to just, 40 with 20-foot seas all the way to Shimya. And then for Tuesday, now we got some storms in the forecast here. Westerlies, 40 knots way out west. North of the islands here into the central Aleutians, 50-knot winds, a little bit stronger on the south side, 55-knot winds, so a pretty storm force day coming up for the central Aleutians there. 45 to 50-knot winds, fall back to 40 to 45 knots. Still some good gales here for Unalaska Island on Tuesday. And for the southwest coast, south to southeast, 15 to 20. Small craft advisories, St. Matthew and the Pribilof. Southeast 30 for St. Matthew Island. Outlook for Tuesday, small craft advisories for the Pribilofs with 14-foot seas. And then 45-knot winds here from the southeast, south of Nunivak Island, east 45 knots north of the island, right on out across St. Matthew Island, and then diminishing to 30 knots still from the east for St. Lawrence Island. And then eastern Beaufort Sea looking not too bad, 15 to 20 knot easterlies tomorrow, extending all the way to the central coast, and then back down to 15 here on the west side, Cape Beaufort, all the way down to the Strait. We've got brisk wind advisories for east at 25 to 30. And then those will come down to 15 to 20 in those zones on Tuesday. Otherwise, brisk wind advisories for the west side, central coast, onto the east here, and then coming down under 25 knots over toward Demarcation Point. Forecast for tonight, front slowly moving eastward here, weak low developing, keeps it wet, Kodiak Island. Mixture of rain or snow here along this boundary all the way up into the Chukchi Sea with those warmer southeast winds. Trough, more showers coming in. Pribilof Islands look for an increase in the wind and snow showers there. Rain and snow showers farther to the south with less wind. Big storm coming into the next big storm, pushing into the western Aleutians late tonight with gale force winds, and those will push eastward tomorrow with rain and wind pushing not quite to Nikolsky by the afternoon. Stays wet over Kodiak and unsettled here over the southwest interior, but lots of sunshine to the north and to the east. And the Panhandle, not too bad. Risk of a snow shower. And for Tuesday, partly to mostly cloudy, chance of rain over the southern Panhandle, and this storm force winds over the central Aleutians with showers, sunny over the eastern interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.